for remembering.
Yay, I'm getting it.
Yes, Sally, go.
Let me just get Adam to unmute, and then I'm going to also make him a co-host so he has something to share. Welcome, Adam.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for coming. Can we drop down the last presentation, Amanda? It's still showing on the screen.
Oh, yes, sorry. I just want to share.
There we go. Thank you, thank you. So I have the great pleasure of introducing Adam Shaw. And I was on actually LinkedIn Live with him as we were doing LinkedIn Lives to introduce some of our speakers the other day. And you're going to absolutely adore him and love his presentation style. Adam has worked in well-being, events, and funding since leaving his role as a nurse back in 2009 to go into business for himself. He currently helps people to pitch, position themselves better to attract clients and funding into their business. He's an author of The Lunatic Gene, How to Make Sense of Your Life. And as a matter of fact, he's got that as a free gift for you. Adam has spent over 6 years overseas working and traveling in 6 different continents. And in his former career as a nurse, he specialized in working with people facing imminent death. And the need to get to the point quickly is amplified when you're in this zone. A fun fact about Adam is he once swam with crocodiles. And as he states, this was an accident that he has no intention of repeating. So today, Adam, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Sally. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Hi.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh, we're
pleasure to have you. The only guy on the summit, by the way, everyone. So I just want the girls to show him some appreciation and love. We've got some masculine energy in the summit today, everyone. So
lucky me. Lucky me.
Lucky you. You've got all these women, Adam. Go for it.
Fantastic. Well, before we even start, I just want to say I only caught the end of the last presentation about how your food influences your life and your energy. And I can say I did a fast last week. I did a 7-day fast. And I can say for 100% certainty that anyone that had any doubt as to how much your eating habits affect your energy, well, I am a living, breathing, walking testimonial to that. It absolutely is the case. I was really shocked at the results that I had.
So Adam, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you started in this business of leaving your former career as a nurse and then moving forward into what you're doing today.
Well, I worked as a nurse for 13 years, and effectively I realized the more I spent time in the health service, I went there to genuinely make a difference in people's lives and to help them to heal. And I realized that I was effectively, when people asked me what my career was, I told them I was a drug dealer, a government-sponsored and approved drug dealer, which is effectively what I was as a nurse. I wasn't healing anyone. It was a pill for every ill. And I energetically, it just wasn't resonating with me on any level. And I knew that I had to leave.
So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice to your younger self when you were just starting out, what would that have been?
Don't leave nursing quite so soon. Find out a little bit more about business before you make the jump. I made every mistake that it was possible to make. I just left with no plan B and no training. I absolutely wouldn't have recommended that. The stress that caused me was negligible whether that was a good move or not. It did help me to increase my skills as a stress management consultant. In fact, it gave me a whole different array of skill set. But I definitely wouldn't recommend it to anyone else.
So we do have a nurse online with us. Jane is a nurse that has recently retired and gone into a couple of other fields and also exploring the opportunity to go into business at a different level. So I'm glad that you're on today because I know that that's really going to help Jane through this piece of it. So what are some of the most impactful habits or rituals that you practice to stay focused and inspired in your business today?
It's really the energy tools. I think when you go into energy medicine, and probably a few of you healers will resonate with this, we get given this fantastic set of tools with the mindset maybe that, oh, I'll sort my stuff out and then I'm good. Then I'm good. So I reached a certain level of wellness or awareness or goodness and then just stopped using the tools. And the descent down is so slight that it happens slowly over time. And then one day you wake up and you think, why did I stop using them? Why do I feel this way? Why did I stop using them? So I think life gives us pain to remind us that, we need to use these on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing I think for me was learning to clear my energy. As an empath, I was spending time with people. I was very good at helping others. And they would always tell me, I feel brilliant. Thank you, Adam. But I felt drained at the end of it. And I couldn't really understand this energy transference that was going on. When I understood that and I realized how to not feel drained when I helped other people, that was probably the biggest shift that happened to me.
Excellent. So now, you talked a little bit about this, but what's the common misconception that people have about your industry or where your area of expertise is, and how do you actually address that?
I think in business, what I've learned is that less is more. People go up in front of, say, investors. It's a very ruthless environment. Coming from the world of well-being, when sometimes it was all about more can be more. To get results in a shorter period of time. Going into funding, it's a complete polar opposite industry from being in wellness and stress management. So stress comes from a different angle. The stress comes from not being able to communicate succinctly and directly with people or knowing what investors want to hear. So being succinct has been the thing now. I was the man that could get on stage and talk effortlessly for days. That's easy for me. But to do that in 1 minute or 10 minutes, that's the challenge.
I understand where you're coming from when it comes to that. And so what allowed you to be able to get so granular on being able to get the right message out in such a short period of time?
It really is to understand who you're talking to and what they're looking to hear. So in the world of funding, what do investors want to know? Most creatives, most founders think it's about the story, the background, the opportunity, the journey. What most investors are looking for is traction, traction, traction. They're looking for how big is your audience? How big is your opportunity? What's the cash flow that's being generated? The rest is just noise. And when you realize that the rest is noise, and to say less of the noise and more of the traction, you understand who you're speaking to and what is likely to influence them and what isn't. And if you don't know that, if you don't know who you're speaking to and what they're looking to hear, then you're going to waste a lot of time both ways talking about things which just aren't important.
Yes. So now, do you have a presentation that you're doing for us today?
No, I told Amanda I was going to wing it.
Okay.
Exactly what I'm going to do.
Excellent.
I'm going to come here. I am going to collect the energy of the collective group, which I've been doing as I've been here, and I'm going to flow. I'm going to flow with go here.
Excellent. I love it. I'll let you go into the flow then. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask you those questions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And I should ask you, how long have I got to flow with the go here? Just so that I can
Amanda, you're the timekeeper.
I can wing it on the move here.
You have another 35 minutes to do stories, Adam. And,
Oh,
and
wow.
going
I
into your
didn't realize
massive
I was going to have quite so
storytelling.
long. What fun we are going to have. Well, do you know, I
Storytelling.
would really like this. I mean, one thing that I've learned on my journey is that, it's nice to be able to get there and tell stories, and I can easily talk for half an hour. I could talk for half a day. But also, this is an interactive session. I'm here to connect with you guys as well. So if you've got any questions over the stuff that comes up, then I will wing it on the move and tie it in with what you want to know as well. Because I guess the skill set that I have is that I've got itchy feet and I'm restless. I've gone from the world of healing and well-being and energy medicine to the brutal world of finance and funding. So I have danced in many different playing grounds here, and what's good for one is almost polar opposite for the other. And that's the paradox of everything that I've learned to do is like what's right in funding is the complete opposite in well-being. So that's important to bear in mind as we go along. So maybe if I tell you about my journey of how this happened, then that will give you maybe something to work with. So I've always been interested in mental health, always. And the reason is because my parents were both psychiatric nurses. So as I tell people, I've got a confession to make off the bat here. I've spent 17 years of my life in a lunatic asylum because my parents worked there and we lived on site. So we actually lived within the grounds and grew up in a bona fide psychiatric hospital. Which was my playground for the first 17 years of my life. So I used to go out playing and see psychiatric patients wandering around the grounds. So I was always fascinated. What makes people like this? What would cause people to be in this state? Why? And getting straight answers out of my parents was definitely not easy. These were not exactly the straight talking, straight down the line people. I had to definitely I had to definitely find out the hard way. And just to bring this alive to you. So every Halloween, every fireworks night, we used to go up to watch a firework display in the hospital and a bonfire. And when I was 10, we went up to bonfire night and we were there. I was there with my dad. And I suddenly saw there and I watched a patient just walk into the middle of the bonfire and just light in front of me. And I thought, wow, I know that fireworks night was about burning a guy. I didn't realize they were going to get a real guy to do it. And at 10 years of age, I just thought, wow, this is out there. I didn't realize, of course, when I saw my dad like run in to try and jump on this guy to get him out of the fire, and then a lot of nurses try and put him out, I realized that probably wasn't part of the plan. But I started to wonder what could possibly go wrong. How can your brain go so wrong as to make you do that? What would make a person do that? So that's really where I was wired. That was the seed that was planted at a young age, working in psychiatric medicine. But what was also interesting about having a background like that is you can imagine I grew up in the 70s in sunny Hertfordshire in London. And how it worked there was kids were a lot crueler back in the day. So when I used to go to school, I used to be a lunatic on day release. Oh, he's out of the asylum. He's on day release. Adam's on day release. Watch out for the lunatic. Now, who'd have believed what a gift that was going to be for me? Because I went to a school where there were bona fide lunatics, some of which are doing time now. And they used to go around tormenting a lot of the kids in the school, but they gave me a wide berth because they weren't sure about me. So it was funny how labels, how things that could traditionally work against you, I learned actually these are good. It's good to be a lunatic. It's worked very much in my favor here. So I sort of reverse engineered this whole, what is bullying? What is labels? Are they good? Are they bad? And I think that everything has a polar opposite energy. And it taught me that from a very young age, that being a lunatic was a good thing, which is why you'll see that there's a lunatic thing in all of the stuff that I talk about now. Being a lunatic, I've learned the positive aspect of lunacy. Which will become apparent when we go into starting up a business. You definitely need to be a lunatic there. That's a little bit further down the line. So this whole theme was there. And furthermore, I couldn't really talk to my parents. I thought they were probably the maddest people in the asylum. I used to go up and visit my dad on the ward, and he used to introduce me to these old boys. And there was a guy in there. He used to sit there and I would talk to him for hours. And his name was Mitch. And Mitch was a bona fide lunatic. He was a patient. And ironically, I would find out years later that Mitch was a double agent during World War II. Like he was, and used to work for MI5, and he was my mentor. He was in the asylum because he got jealous one day and shot his wife in the head because he thought she was having an affair, which is why he spent the rest of his life in a lunatic asylum. And that was my first mentor, folks. So I guess my journey was always meant to be different. It was always going to be a little bit different to everybody else's. So I was fascinated with mental health. I wasn't so good at school. I was quite disruptive. I got asked to leave. Very early, I've been working from a young age. I worked in a video shop. I worked as a waiter. I had a paper round, been working since I was about 10. I then went into catering at 16. I was a grill chef. I went into banking for 2 years. And then when everybody else was starting to settle down, I felt restless. I wanted to explore. So I started traveling. I went to America to work in summer camps. I was a camp counselor back in the day. So I was to do that for 6 years, working with kids in different camps, in different settings. I worked in a fat camp. So I spent a whole summer with fat kids, helping them to lose weight. So I was always interested in travel and exploring. And nursing, it proved, was a good profession to allow me to do that because I could easily come back into nursing. And I went in with the illusion I was helping people. I was going to be helping people to feel better. And hence the conflicts that I had with the world of drugs, the pharmaceutical industries. So I sort of fell out with that. And not only that, what you realize in nursing, you go there to care for people, and really the NHS is a business and it's quite brutal. And effectively, some really bad decisions meant that people were dying as a result of it. And I was the voice of the patients. I'd be speaking up. I'd been holding management to account. I was the fly in the ointment. I upset a lot of senior managers because I was asking too many inconvenient questions and advocating for my patients. And I knew that although I could win these battles, that I would never win the war. You never win the war in a big system like the National Health Service. So I knew at a level that I had to get out. I didn't have a plan B. I didn't decide, I had no backup plan, but I had this massive calling that I had to get out. I had to get out. So I left nursing. I didn't have a backup plan. I had saved a little bit of money, so I did some courses. I did a bit of travel. I went on a bit of a journey, and I also ended up writing a book. That's when I started to write the Lunatic Gene. I thought I need to get something down now. I've got to get through my bucket list. I've got to do something. I've got to write a book. That turned into the Lunatic Gene. And that's the one that you can all download today. And you'll find my alternative route into the system. Now, the bit that I missed out here while I was still a nurse is that I was motivated. I found myself working in situations with people at the end of life. But these weren't your hospices or your terminal care wards where people were sort of prepared for it. I used to work in acute medicine. And in acute medicine, sometimes you'd get people that would come in with minor pains or little niggling pains, or people that were around about my age now, or sometimes younger, in their 40s, usually blokes in their 40s. Here's a classic example, and this is one of at least 100 similar case studies that I had to deal with. A guy who was a builder. He was on a building site. He had some pain in his stomach. He decided that he would finish the contract. He did an extra 3 weeks when the pain would get a little bit more amplified. He came in, he thought, to get a few painkillers and go home. And 2 days later, we were telling him that he had terminal cancer that had spread so far that we could do nothing about it. And so what I was having to process was, what do you say to somebody that has just been handed a death sentence? And that was tough. I didn't know what to say. We had no training. Nurse training hadn't prepared us for that. So what I used to do was sit and hold space. I remember the first time that happened to me is going and sitting with this guy, Steve. And I'd had a chat with Steve. And usually I find out what football teams people follow. It's a very English thing. So I found out he supported a team called Leyton Orient, which, let's just say, aren't very good at all. In fact, they were very bad that season. They were bottom of the league. They were doing terribly, which will be relevant later on. So I found that the day before. The next day, I'd just been told Steve's just been given a death sentence, and I went and sat down. And I remember saying, Steve, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. I said, is it all right if I sit with you? And I just sat with him. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything at all to Steve. And after about, I don't know, it seemed like days, but it was probably about 5 minutes. Steve turned around to me and said, listen, mate, he said, tell me this. He said, is there any hope? And the first thing that came into my head, just popped into my head. I said, well, let's put it this way, Steve. I said, you've got more hope than Leyton Orient have of staying up this season. And the two of us just burst into spontaneous laughter in the middle of the ward. And so much so, we were laughing so hard, me and Steve, that my nurse facilitator, I was a student nurse at the time, my nurse facilitator came over and told me to get to the office, marched me into the office, and disciplined me for inappropriate laughter. So I asked her to define. I said, define inappropriate laughter? I said, I was laughing with him, not at him. Yeah. You know, he did, in case you hadn't noticed, he was laughing as well. So I ended up writing a dissertation on the use of humor in the medical setting, of how important it is, you know, laughter, how it can heal. And there's some incredible case studies of how laughter can heal. So it made me start thinking alternatives outside of the box. It made me see the whole health system differently. And it also, when my granddad got cancer, it made me open up to alternatives, because the question that changed my life, it was one thing that changed my life, is that when people have been given a death sentence, they all had the same question. Everyone had the same question. They say, is there any hope? And it was that question that made me start to ask myself, is there anything? What's outside of the health service here? So that's how I got myself into energy medicine. So I started exploring Reiki, and I was quite cynical. So with Reiki, I went online and I thought, right, I'd heard of this thing, this universal life force energy. What the hell's Reiki all about? What's that? What's it about? What's Reiki? So I'd found it. I'd met people like years before at this Australian retreat, and they told me you could learn it in a weekend. And of course, I'd been medically trained. I thought, I trained 4 years to be a nurse, and you're telling me you can go and heal in a weekend? Yeah, whatever. So I'd been very closed-minded to Reiki up until now. And I thought, right, well, there's nothing to lose. Is there any hope? Well, what have we got to lose? People are dying all around me. I might as well at least open my mind slightly to a different path there. So I ended up booking Reiki 1 and 2 in a weekend. I thought, let's do it. Let's double the energy, double it. Let's double up. I'll do 1 and 2 in a weekend. Whoosh, the fast course. I'll be a Jedi master at the end of it all. So I thought, let's do it. Let's do this. So I went, I booked into Reiki 1 and 2. I remember going to day 1 of Reiki, and, you know, from somebody that was purely medically trained, I'm meeting people that are talking to their spirit guides. I'm meeting people that are reading auras, telling me what color my auras are. And I honestly, from somebody that grew up in a lunatic asylum, I thought I'd got myself back. I thought I'd got myself back right in. I thought, you know, even with my background, it didn't prepare me for this. But I thought, okay, right. Obviously, I'm here with the out there crowds, the slightly different out there alternative crew. Here I am in the middle of it, but I'll stay open-minded for now. Our Reiki master turned up on day 1 and started talking about his alternative life as a psychic surgeon. And I said, what? What the hell is psychic surgery? And he started to explain this to me. And I went from pretty cynical to like, what the hell have I done? What am I doing here? I was asking questions. After 2 hours of day 1, I got told I had to stop asking questions or we'd never get through the content, because I couldn't process what was going on in front of me. I was so cynical about Reiki on day one that I almost didn't go back for day two. I thought, this is out there. This is complete nonsense. And I met two people there that day, two of my friends. And I decided I was only going back because I'd met two friends in there. They're still my friends. I opened my mind to day two. I finished up and I thought, that's it. I'm not going to do Reiki again. This is obviously complete nonsense, the whole lot of it. And that was a Saturday and Sunday I did that course. On the Monday, I got a letter from a company that I hadn't had anything to do with for over 12 months. I'd bought a video camera, they'd overcharged me, I'd complained, nothing had happened. That was it, nothing for 12 months. I got a letter through for them the next day on the Monday. And it said to us that, I'm sorry, we've just reviewed our records and we realized that you've overpaid us, and here's a check. The check was for the exact amount of money that I just paid for the Reiki course, including the 2 days of transport, the exact to the penny. And even me, Mr. Cynical, medically trained, Western medicine mind, even with my hard line wall about all of these woo-woo arts, even I started to think that is too coincidental, not to do something where it seems like some sort of message. So I decided to do this, to follow the process. They told us to heal ourselves, to do 3 weeks of energy work. So I did 3 weeks of energy work. I was doing an hour and a half of Reiki on myself every day. And after 3 weeks, I started to feel there was an ache in my chest, in my heart. And what was strange about this is I was working on a cardiac care ward at the time. I was a cardiac nurse. I was working in the CCU. And I knew it wasn't angina because it didn't have any of the symptoms, but it was like my heart was like getting heavier and heavier and heavier every day. And I could feel, I was feeling under distance from my emotions. I was feeling quite tearful. And this is coming from somebody in a family where nobody cries, nobody hugs. You know, we weren't an emotional family. You don't do stuff like that. So you know, this was a strange sensation for me. And in the end, I had so much pain in my chest that I canceled my shifts. I continued the healing for a couple of days. And suddenly I had this epiphany. This epiphany happened to me, and in a split second, people had described this. We'd brought them back. We'd resuscitated people and brought them back, and they described this. It's where their life flashes before them. And that happened to me. My whole life flashed before me. And this was in my early 30s. I was physically in great shape, the best shape of my life, but emotionally, spiritually, completely bankrupt. And I realized I had this awareness that because of I wasn't in touch with my emotions, I hadn't really exercised that aspect of my health and well-being, that I was bankrupt in many other areas, and that I was catapulting to serious illness. And I had the awareness in that moment of what was going to cause me to have a heart attack, to not repair my relationships with my family, my friends, myself. And so that put me on an alternative path. It made me see mental health differently. It made me see that the health service, it only focused on the physical. It completely ignored the spiritual and the emotional and the mental part of it. So I see the health service like a service for your car where they only check one tire and then just assume that the other three are going to be okay. And I had that all in a moment from working with Reiki. So how that manifested for me was that once I had that, I went around to all of my friends and family and I said, look, I know we don't do this stuff, but I just need you to know that I love you. Both of my parents' initial reaction when I told them I loved them, both psychiatric nurses, qualified psychiatric nurses, folks, their initial reaction was, what drugs are you on? What are you taking, Adam? What are you taking? They were trying to diagnose me, telling them I loved them. Welcome to life with psychiatric parents, folks. So just to give you an idea of what we were dealing with, this was a family nonsensical thing that had been going on for generations. And I was the one that realized I was the one that had to break this domino effect of family passing nonsense on. And I knew at that point that that was my mission. That was what I had to do. I had to break the family bullshit, folks. I had to break all of this nonsense that was passed from one generation to the other. So we got through that. I managed to have a hug with both of my parents. I went round to all of my other family, told them I loved them, which was just a good thing. It was the ultimate. It was the ultimate in insurance policies, because they're all dead now, folks. So my memory of them all was a positive and loving one. And I did it to my friends too. And each time I did that, the pain in my heart got less and less and less and less. And after 3 days, I was feeling like I was floating on the roof. So that was my transition from Western medicine to, shall we say, the more esoteric arts. And after I left that, I thought, right, let's go and be a well-being coach. Let me go and show people that this is the way that I can make a difference in people's lives now. And so I went round. I thought, this is it. I'm going to heal the world. I'm going to show people, I'm going to get them before they end up in the coronary care unit. I knew that I can pretty much predict a heart attack now. Heart attack, strokes, cancer. Give me 10 minutes with anyone. I'll tell them how at risk they are. I have this template, it all downloaded, all simultaneously for me. And I thought, let's go out and tell people. But I was terrible at explaining it, and people just didn't believe it, and they weren't ready for my message at the time. And after going around and telling people and being stupid in business, I was meeting people for coffee and getting them the result before even charging them. So I was so keen to do what I was doing that I forgot that I was meant to be in business. I was just doing what I was doing and not making any money. And after a few years of not making money and just being stupid about the other aspects of business, and not understanding what I was doing, I was giving a talk one day, and my whole world changed. So my friend asked me to go in and give a talk, and I didn't realize he'd invited me to a multi-level marketing do. People were all there to make money, and he brought me in to talk about health and well-being. Nobody wanted to hear about health and well-being, and the guy that had invited me there was a terrible speaker. He introduced me, and no one was even listening to him. There must have been probably about 70 people. Half of them weren't even in the room. And he introduced me to the stage, and there wasn't a single person listening to me. And I remember having what I called the fuck it moment, where I just thought, right, do you know what? Fuck it. So I gave this 2-minute intro and told people I was going to change their life with a technique that was going to instantly heal them. It was going to get them out of any awkward situation, any networking situation that they didn't want to be speaking with the person they were caught in the corner. It was going to instantly get them out of that. And it was going to scientifically lower their blood pressure. And suddenly I heard people in the room suddenly stop talking and look around and think, what is this guy talking about? And 2 minutes later, everybody had filed into the room, and you'd have heard a pin drop. Everyone's waiting for this magic formula that I'm going to give them. And I said, this is what you do. I said, if you're in that situation, someone's talking, do this. It will get you out of it instantly, scientifically proven, works every time. And they're all waiting for this magic to come. I said, just do this. And I went, I started clucking like a chicken. And then I made everybody else in the room cluck like chickens. And I had the best feedback. I had the best email sign up of any talk I've ever given at a multi-level marketing event. I said, if anyone wants to know more about what I do, give me your name and email. Everybody gave me their name and email. It was unbelievable. It was a game changer. And it just turned out that there was a guy in the audience who said, that was brilliant. I want to meet you. And we were down in South London. I lived in Hertfordshire, which is about 30 miles away. And London's a big place. You cover a lot of people in 30 miles going across London. He lived about 500 meters from where I lived up in Hertfordshire. And he invited me to his office the next day. I knew the guy who he was in the office with. He was a mutual friend. And while I was in the office, suddenly a guy came in with a suit and walked straight up to me. And the first thing he said, didn't ask me my name. He goes, what do you do? And I said, I was still in fuck it mode. And I went, I make people cluck like chickens. And he went, well, how does that work then? And I had this 2-minute intro to a video, and I played it, and he just started laughing. He turned around to me, he goes, I like you. Let's go to the pub. So we went to the pub, drunk an obscene amount of alcohol. And he asked me what I did. I told him I was a health consultant. Told him I was a well-being specialist. We were drunk in the pub. It turned out this guy was an investor. And the next day he phoned me up and he said, let's go and have a coffee. And I thought to myself, wow, this guy's an investor. I wonder if he'll be my mentor. So I went to the pub. Oh, I went to the coffee shop. What am I talking about? Went to the coffee shop the next day, fully expecting to ask this guy if he'd be my mentor. And I sat down with him and I said, you know what? I think me and you could work together. And he said, how much do you need? And I wasn't ready for that question. I didn't even know what to say. And he said, is £10,000 enough? So that's how I got investment. That was my first investment. I had a chicken video and a night in the pub with an investor. I didn't have a business. I had no business plan. I had no plan at all. But I met an investor who invested in a business that didn't exist. And after about 12 months of him having invested in me, I thought it'd be nice to work with him. I didn't really want to do it on my own. I wanted to learn from people. And he had a celebrity art business at the time. I had a well-being business. He didn't want to do well-being. I didn't want to do celebrity art. So we went to 100 people that he knew in his network and asked them, what are you struggling with most in your business? And about 90% of them said funding. So we co-founded a funding company. As it turned out, my investor friend, his father is a lord. So I got to know his dad. I got to ask him if he'd be a chairman. So I went from having no business, no money, no clients, no revenue, to having a funding business with a lord of the realm, cavorting, schmoozing investors in the House of Lords, through having a chicken video and a sense of humor. That's how I went from well-being to funding. And I spent the next 2 years building up relationships with investors, finding out what they wanted, working with startup companies that were looking to get funded. And I realized from these numerous conversations with people in the funding world that there was certain mistakes that startup businesses made along this journey. They all seemed to make the same mistake. And most startup founders thought it was our fault they weren't getting funded, even though we were making introductions to investors. So I decided, okay, what we need here is we need to prove to the founders that it's them and not us. So that's how I started running funding events. I started building up great networking events for investors, giving our businesses a chance to pitch in front of them, and then getting feedback from the investors as to why they weren't or they were going to invest. And through that process, through 2 years of asking questions and building up relationships with investors, it gave me a knowledge of investment, and it gave me a knowledge of how pitching is very different to public speaking. So for that, I became an event host. I started emceeing events. People started to get to know me as running events, as emceeing events for them. I've emceed events in wellbeing, in tech, in Web3, in crypto, in blockchain. And even in the blockchain one, I said, why are you asking me to host an event about something I know nothing about? And they said, well, it's because you know nothing about it that we want you in there, because we want you to ask the questions that the audience are going to be thinking. So I couldn't even understand some of the questions people were giving me. But the bottom line is that I spent the last 10 years of my life in the event space, in the consultancy space, and working with startups that were looking for funding. Because I realized that most startups that are looking for funding, they're not quite ready, and they need to build their ecosystem. So quite often I work with startups, we find out what they're looking for, and we start putting the things in place for them to build their ecosystem so that they will be fundable somewhere down the line. And so that is how I've evolved from going into from lunacy to being in banking, to nursing, to funding, to consultancy right now. It's a lunatic journey, folks, and that's what the Lunatic Gene is all about. So I'm guessing that that must be close to my time now. So if there's any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Adam. That was so engaging. It was so powerful, and I don't know, who's got questions? Because I saw lots of engagement, I saw lots of smiles and laughs as you're telling your story. But what a powerful story on that transition and recognizing the different things through your life and then how it all unfolded for you and being able to now be in an industry that you never even imagined you would be in the pitching. It just goes to show we think we know where we want to be, but yet our energy is going to take us to where it leads us. So that's beautiful. So who has a question? I mean, there's got to be a few out there.
Adam, I've got a question.
Fire away.
Hello. Obviously, you've gone and done quite a lot of things, and I know that you are a great networker of all different kinds of people. You have lots of different options in terms of moving forward. I know you still do a little bit on the funding, and you're being pulled back into the energy world. I know that's calling you back. What is your take on, there's a lot of different energy modalities out there, and for those of us that are more esoteric, I do feel that time's speeding up a little bit. In your experience, what could you share with the audience about the energy work that you're also kind of being called back to?
That's a really good question. And thank you for asking that, because it's now made me realize every single energy system that I've studied, and I've studied a lot, I find ultimately you reach a point where there's an element of spiritual bigotry where I'm a better healer than you are. When in actual fact, the best healing that I ever gave was when I didn't think I was a good healer at all, when I felt like an imposter, because all I did was hold the space and do the exercise and let people heal themselves. Healers don't heal other people. We hold the space, let other people heal themselves. Some people are ready to heal and some people aren't. And understanding that is more important than any other thing in healing. We don't heal. We provide a space for people to heal themselves. And anyone that says otherwise is caught in the realm of what I call spiritual bigotry. So what have I learned? I learned it's not about me, and that everyone has the power to heal.
Thank you, Adam.
That in itself sums it up. Wow. I think that's important to remember, because it's so easy for us to get caught up in the business side of our business. And really it's the people side and the spiritual side. So amazing. So make sure you take advantage of the free gift to the Lunatic Gene book. What's the second part of it? The Lunatic Gene, make sense of
How to make sense of your life.
There we go. I think I need it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Guide for lunatics. That's what it is.
It's been an
My
absolute
pleasure. Nice
Adam, I know I've known Adam quite a while now. We actually, just to tell a quick story, Adam and I were both on an experiential training, and it was about, they opened up, it was like live Monopoly. So on one table they had banks, one table they had investors, and we had all these like cards like Monopoly. And I happened to just synchronicity be sitting next to Adam, and we'd been chatting, and I was buying houses at the time. And so he said to himself, well, that chick seems to know what she's doing. So on the next game, I'm going to hang around her. So we got talking, and then the speaker goes, okay, market's open. And so we got chatting, and we said, everybody's running around and trying to buy properties and houses, etc. Why don't we get together and like see if we can get a whole load of people together and then just buy everyone out? Let's just do it. So I was a bit shy back then. I didn't want to get on the microphone. So Adam and I got together. He got on the mic and did what he does best, which is telling stories and getting everybody excited. And I was at side of him going, give me your money, give me money. We're going to go and buy all these complexes, these fake complexes. And that's what we did. He got on the microphone and said, basically, anyone that wants to be a millionaire in the next 5 minutes, come and talk to me and Amanda. And that's how it started. And we had like about, 30 people come up to us, giving us all their money. Then we ran around and bought all the properties and complexes and hotels that we could get our mitts on. And I think we made like 100 million, Adam, or something like that.
We made a lot of money. It's been pretty much a theme for my life since I've known Amanda. Like, I know she's the real talent and I'm the mouthpiece. So I just get people, I'm the one that makes the noise, and then I send them to Amanda, which is pretty much how things have panned out in life. So if you don't know her work, then I can't endorse it highly enough. And she's not just great at what she does, she's my mate. So like, which is the ultimate win in business, you know, do business with people that you would want to hang out with anyway. And if you keep by that rule, then you can't go far wrong.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a real lesson, because whenever, you know, we've been on different, Adam and I have both been on different entrepreneurial journeys over the last 16 years. And we've had really to support each other, and we give each other direct feedback on this doesn't feel aligned, Amanda. It might sound sexy to you, but I'm not feeling it. So energetically, you know, we'll be the devil's advocate. And you really need that support, because this entrepreneurial journey, and we both understand the energy part of it. We both understand the money side of it. And so when you have someone or a mentor or a coach in your life that's really giving you that direct feedback, it really helps you make those decisions. Because sometimes, even though you're aligned and you think the intuitive hits are coming through, sometimes it's just a little bit foggy, and you need that 3D person to go, but really, how does it feel? You can see the money and the opportunity here, because I always get excited about, I'm so sure some of you are the same, the shiny object syndrome. Oh, look, it's another course that's going to deliver this. And you go off running in that direction, and Adam will go, does it really feel good? And then I'll sit there and go, actually, I'm scared out of my pants. Probably not. So I hope you've all got somebody like that. If you haven't, then find someone that can help you, because it will really give you that discernment on the decisions that you're making in your business, to make sure that you are making the right decisions to get to the prosperity that you want. Because we're all empaths. We all deserve to have that flow, that financial income. And you've got to be in a position where you allow it in. And the biggest thing I've learned with also Adam and the people that we serve is a lot of us aren't allowing it in. There really is a block on receiving. You get to a certain amount in your business, in your coaching business, and then you just hit that ceiling and you can't get past it. So the biggest thing that we've both learned, especially in the last probably 5 years, is dealing with the money shit, you know, making sure that you have just let it go and that you are receiving. Because we're very good at what we do. We all have incredible superpowers. And now people are starting to really value it. You can charge $300 to $500 a session. It's possible now. Wasn't so much 5 or 10 years ago, but now people are going, I want the energetic stuff. I want it fast, and I want it now. So for those of you that haven't raised your prices in a while, raise your prices. You're worth it, and you deserve it.
Nice summary. Thank you so much to Adam for coming today and entertaining us, but also just incredible messages. And I can't wait to get my hands on your book. And Amanda, thank you for tidying that up. I believe we're going to take a quick break right now for about 10 minutes. And
we are. Itzel Sharaf is going to be talking to us about marketing. So if you want to, well, actually stop the recording and then start again.